I've noticed in myself and in my friends, you and others, that like, hey, sometimes you're with that girl because your picker's broken. Because everything in you and your unconscious was telling you, this is a great choice. This is exactly who you should be with. And you're just wrong because of a whole lot of reasons. Because of
the wrong things are making you feel right.
Exactly.
That's exactly.
Welcome back to the Mindfully Masculine podcast. This is Charles. All right, Dan and I will continue in this episode to discuss The Man's Guide to Women by the Gottmans, and we will talk about relationship dynamics and commitment, the stages of love, challenges in relationships, cultural perspectives on marriage, self-improvement and relationship growth, conflict resolution and communication, prenuptial agreements and financial planning, red flags in relationships, and a critique of romantic ideals and other topics. Please check out our website, mindfullymasculine.com, to see all of our audio and video episodes and anything else that we find worth sharing. Thanks and enjoy.
So good morning, Charles. How are you?
Just barely, Dan.
Yeah.
Good, thanks. Yeah, we are recording this just before lunchtime and probably go hit one of our favorite spots, either Panera or I went to Island Fin Poke the other day.
I'd go back there again. That was delicious.
This place was good.
Yeah.
And they, again, gave me a free little thing of Dole Whip.
That's a nice little finisher.
Absolutely. I like that place. Yeah, but I haven't had a Southwest Chicken Ranch. That's the salad I get at Panera, right? Yeah. Oh, that's good. So might need one of those again. But I got to get new tires for the BMW. I rolled 200,000 miles on my last trip to Jacksonville. And I'm going to go with some cheap tires because I don't know how much longer that car's going to last. I'm starting to get some noises and stuff. And I got to find a new mechanic because just coming all the way over to Deltona whenever I need something. So I found somebody with pretty good reviews a little closer to where I live, and I'm going to try them, give them a shot, say, hey, tell me what these noises are and what it's going to take to fix it, and see what kind of number they give me. And that'll determine whether if it's too expensive, I might just say, okay, I'm going to just keep driving this till it breaks down and save as much as I can for the next vehicle. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there's nothing big going on. Just some of the shifting's a little rougher and some of the gears are giving me a little bit of noise when I'm driving down the road. I hope so. That'd be great. But it is a manual, so those are, have a reputation of being cheaper to fix than automatics. So we'll see. But I'm going to have to take it someplace. Going to have to get new tires and take it to get the transmission looked at. But fingers crossed, because it's still a fun car to drive. I still like having it, but we'll see. Okay, so we're going to dive into our next chapter real quick. This one is going to be called Is She the One? Understanding Women and Commitment. And this is a new section in the book, The Man's Guide to Women. And as usual, we will use the summation at the end of the chapter to sort of guide us through the different topics that are covered. First thing Dr. Gottman and others get into or bring up is that men want commitment just as much as women do. And I would say that, on average, most men verbalize the desire to have especially as they reach a certain age, the desire to have a wife and family just as much as women talk about wanting a husband and a family. It's just sometimes the age that they start talking about that is a little bit different. I think usually men are a little bit older before they start talking about it the way that with the intensity that women do. Most men know when a woman is quote unquote the one, which is a concept that I find dubious. And I feel like he could have done a better job of explaining how there is no the one for you in a metaphysical sense. He did an okay job where there's a range of people that you could probably have a successful relationship with, and there's nothing magical about one of them over another, but there are some intangibles that make you feel like you found the one more than others, right? There has to be an inherent rightness for a woman to be the one. She has to smell right, feel right, taste right, and look right. So yeah, some of those
it's very vague still.
It is. And
I didn't appreciate the rightness comment.
Yeah, I think it's okay and fair to say that there are some intangibles that you might not be able to succinctly express in words why one person appeals to you over another person. But
as a research scientist, shouldn't that be their job?
It's your job to take the magic out of this, right?
Right. That's where I feel like he was kind of the same thing with his comment of man up in certain circumstances, right? Like
agreed. It's a little
dig in a little bit and yes, be more precise. So I understand why.
Yeah. I do appreciate that sometimes, you will feel a connection or attraction to one woman over another, and it's not something that you can easily quantify, but that doesn't mean that there aren't real criteria that your brain is evaluating on some conscious or unconscious level.
What I'm concerned about is a lot of times I've felt things have been right and they have not been. They have been wrong. And so my lack of understanding of what that rightness feeling is, I think it was to my detriment. So I would love to know what is at play when when those things are feeling right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And he did not really he didn't really flesh out the idea that I've noticed in myself and in my friends, you and others, that like, hey, sometimes you're with that girl because your picker's broken. Because everything in you and your unconscious was telling you, this is a great choice. This is exactly who you should be with. And you're just wrong because of a whole lot of reasons. Because
the wrong things are making you feel right.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I was saying. Perfect way to put it.
Yeah. When that happens, if you've not done some work to be as healthy as you can be, then you're not going to be as attracted to the healthy option when he or she presents themselves. You're going to, and look, I think, I mean, when you've been through some relationships that didn't have the result that you hoped that they would, and when you've been through some experiences as you were younger, it's like part of you should have a healthy skepticism of, okay, the way that Dr. Drew, he said it on one of his TV shows or radio shows back in the day, was you should want to feel butterflies, not lightning bolts. If you've got any kind of a history of trauma or, seeing poorly modeled romantic relationships in your parents, then the fact that you're feeling lightning bolts, that might be an indicator that this is not the right person for you. And getting too excited, and we'll get into the different stages of falling in love, but if the limerence stage, the first stage, hits you too hard, that could be related to your lack of health and your lack of function, not how great this person is for you.
It's a hard sell because once you felt lightning bolts, which most of us have at some point, now that's the kind of the bar. Like, I could be feeling this good.
Right.
And so now you feel like you're settling for butterflies, and there could be things now that you're looking for to sabotage the relationship, end the relationship, whatever it is, because you didn't get to those lightning bolts. And that's usually a recipe for disaster or unsuccess or unhappiness. And so that's why I wish he kind of would dig in a little bit more in terms of the mechanisms and, what is okay, that, how right is right. Like what, how good does it need to be, and how good is too good? Like if we could get into that, like what kind of behaviors do you exhibit when you are with a person when it's butterflies versus lightning bolts? What kinds of things are you thinking or feeling typically? Just give us some examples of, right and butterflies versus lightning bolts. And he may have touched on a little bit. I forget. He may have a little bit in the chapter later. I just forgot, but yeah. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, might be something else to look for in another book too, that might get a little bit into that.
I think the name of the book should be Butterflies versus Lightning Bolts.
And we will write.
I think yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting question though, that how much of the struggle that we have in our relationships are just based on how bad we are at picking good relationships, and how much our brain is tricking us into thinking, that chaos equals chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's a fair question. Okay, so the 3 stages of love are going to be limerence. Stage 2 is trust and knowing if you'll be there for each other, and then the 3rd stage is loyalty and commitment. So we'll get into those in a little bit more detail. You can't fall in love with just anyone, and you can't make it work with everyone. And I found it interesting. You talked about, like, even in cultures where there are arranged marriages, sometimes there's more selection going into those arranged marriages than we Westerners might think that there is, looking at them from the outside.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, neither did I. He mentions, like, in the case of some Indian couples, usually they're, once the couple meet each other, in a lot of cases, maybe not every case, in a lot of cases, they have a way to say, oh, we need to get back to the get back to the search because this isn't the right person for me. And then they'll chalk it up to like astrology or
I think
some other cause.
I think it's the sari that the woman wears.
Yeah, she comes up colors.
Change colors if she's not interested.
Right. I think
pretty sneaky.
The
pretty good.
Ella has the opportunity to do that too.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure there's some sort of code. Come out chewing gum versus not, whatever,
Whatever it is. So that's interesting. That they have, even though the parents take on a lot of the responsibility for making that pick, there are still ways that the individuals can.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I thought it was almost like a forced type of thing.
Yeah.
And that it makes sense if it's been around as tradition for so many years that they would be intelligent enough to realize that the people getting married do need to want, at least at some point, feel like, they are compatible or open to it versus, so have some sort of, fail safe, kind of veto type of situation. I think it's like
that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad that to learn that exists.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So stage 1 of the falling in love process is what the Gottmans call limerence, and you and I have talked about limerence before on this show. It's that feeling of being in love with someone when your chemicals and your hormones are going crazy to get you bound to this person as tightly as you can at the beginning of the relationship, so that you'll be willing to stick with them when things are a little bit harder, i.e., children and household are requiring you to do things that are difficult. And, I imagine I have not found myself I've never made lifelong commitments or decisions while I've been in the limerence phase with someone, and then, had to kind of sober up and realize, oh crap, what have I done? I think of, celebrities, flying to Vegas and getting married on sort of a whim when they're in this stage, and then they have to, figure out how to live with it or roll it back or whatever. And I'm glad I've not found myself in that position, but I have been in the position where I've been in limerence with someone and have thought, okay, this is it. This is my person. I'm going to be with them forever. And then it didn't turn out that way. So that's why it's so important to not make lifelong decisions with lifelong consequences when you're in the first few months of being with a new partner.
Yeah. But sometimes you'll get pressure from the other person to make some
person or your friends or family. I mean, there's no telling where that pressure could come from.
Right.
And that's why it's important to say, no, I don't make decisions I don't make these huge decisions when I'm on drugs, which is essentially what you are.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So they said, what kind of hormones are going on? Like oxytocin.
List. Yeah. Some that I haven't even said or pronounced before. Let me find it here. Cause it is, he mentioned some chemicals that I had not heard the name either. Before. Oxytocin, dopamine, phenylethylamine, PEA, testosterone, estrogen, serotonin, and dihydropientestosterone.
Huh. Okay.
DHEA. You can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't stop obsessively thinking about your partner. You're crazy excited, head over heels in love, and you may find yourself doing some wild things. And often your partner who's going through that with you will be in the same boat. And it really, it does feel like you're on drugs, and your fear response goes down. Your ability to look ahead and plan for the future goes down. It's quite a trick that biology plays on you.
It kind of forces you to kind of be in that moment and then not be able to think forward or as easily think forward because you're feeling so good in that moment. Yeah. That you're just focused and on the present time. Sometimes that's good to do, but it's sometimes not good to make long-term plans in that state.
Right. That's where I think, maintaining your therapy, your men's group or your women's group, and talking through this process with other people that you trust and that understand it is very important, because you need somebody to sometimes talk you down a little bit.
Yeah, because and you need those external people because they're not on the same drugs that you are, so they definitely will be bringing a different perspective.
Yeah, and it's good to have people like that in your life that can kind of check you when you're experiencing this, because it's very difficult for you to check yourself, other than just having certain principles like I do not move in with someone that I've known less than X number of months or years. I do not marry someone that I've known less than X number of years. I do not fill in the blank, whatever those rules are. It's good to have those before you get into the relationship so that you don't find yourself just getting completely caught up in making, putting your name on a 30-year mortgage with somebody that you met 3 months ago.
I know a lot of people will, and I've been guilty of this too, is, oh, well, this person's different. Like I can shortcut this principle.
Here's great reasons why.
And I can sign this mortgage because this person's completely different than all the other ones and stuff. And it's just like, again, you're judging it under drugs and not with a clear head. So if friends and family are starting to ask you some questions that are getting annoying to you because they're saying, oh, you're acting different, there's a good chance that you might be. And usually they're going to be mentioning it to you for your best interest. And just try not to be so quick to dismiss that.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I got married pretty young, and my wife was pretty young too. And we did not have any kind of a prenuptial agreement or even really talk about having one because we didn't have any assets. So what do you need one for it? Mm-hmm. Neither of us came from families with a lot of assets. So you were engaged. Did that conversation ever come up with you and your fiance?
No, it never did. Because neither of us also didn't
have any assets.
Didn't really have any assets or a lot of money at that point. And I was engaged for 5 months, and it was like before we even sent the invitations out or anything, we decided we're not doing it for the right reasons.
Sure. So yeah, I think as I'm older, not that I still have much in the way of assets on paper. I certainly have. My assets are a very inexpensive lifestyle where I get to do what I want all the time. And I don't think you don't put that into a prenuptial agreement. But I'm just thinking of this because I watched a show recently where it was about a woman getting married and her family had a lot of money. And it's like, I'll send you to my lawyer, get the prenup. Oh, we're not getting a prenup. Oh, yes, you are. No, we're not. And it led to a whole bunch of that. But she was, she met the guy fairly recently. So she was definitely in the limerence stage. And, the idea that they weren't going to be together forever seemed preposterous to her. So why would they need a prenuptial agreement if they're going to be together for the rest of their lives?
So there's so much more behind that. It's kind of one of those things I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're going to jinx the relationship if you have that type of thing, right? And it's just like, holy cow. What's the difference? If you're going to be together, then you don't need it, but get it anyway. Like, you don't, that's why there's a reason there's medical insurance, auto insurance. I mean, some of it's dictated by law, but at the same time, it's like, you have it, but you hope you never use it.
Right. It does feel like
what's the point?
It's in that category of superstition and magical thinking and stuff like that, where, I would say if I ever got married again and I was, worried about any of my assets or any of her, or she was worried about hers, then of course get a prenup. Why make a big deal about it? Part of me is also, I'm of the opinion if I was marrying into money, that's her money. It's not my money. And I don't need somebody else's resources. I'm capable of generating my own resources or regenerating them if I need to.
I heard a great way of thinking about it. I don't know who said it, but it was basically the person that you're marrying is not the person that you're divorcing. So that's why you want a prenuptial agreement.
That's true. Yeah.
And you're not going to be the same person either. So let's just be honest.
Yeah. And when something turns from a personal relationship into a business relationship, which is essentially what a divorce is a business transaction, then you want to go into your business transactions in as strong a position as you can, or even in as equitable position as you can. That's fair to both people. And so, the time to make that decision of what's fair is when you're not in the middle of divorcing the person.
Right. Well, you still
when you still like each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just thought that one of the things that goes along with that limerence stage is this idea of we're going to be together forever. So let's make some huge decisions right now. And that can definitely turn around and bite you. Stage 2 is trust and knowing if you'll be there for each other. So stage 2 is when the limerence starts to wear off and you start looking at the situation like, okay, do we have the same values? Do we feel the same way about things like children and money and sex and, what is a good life? and answering those kind of questions, and being able for the first time since you've met each other, being able to answer them honestly and decide, okay, is this the kind of person that I can stay true to myself and also stay true to them for the rest of our lives?
Yeah.
And you got to kind of ask those questions. And on the one hand, it's harder if you come up with no's, it's harder to get out of the relationship because you've been with them for a while. But on the other hand, you can, now that you're not on the same dose of drugs as you were before, you should be able to look at those questions a little bit more reasonably.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also when she's going to be making decisions like, okay, is this the kind of person that I can run a household and raise a family with? Is he going to be reliable enough and trustworthy enough to get myself into those kinds of positions where I'm really reliant on his ability to provide for me emotionally, financially, in all those ways.
Yeah. Yep.
Third stage of love is about loyalty and commitment, which again, trustworthiness really kind of is a vein that goes through all three of these as far as what the woman's looking for from the man. Are you going to be who you claim to be, and are you going to do the things that you say you're going to do? And it gets harder and harder to overlook those failures the longer you're with somebody, as well it should. And so if there are sort of chinks in your armor when it comes to being who you are or being who you claim to be and doing what you say you'll do, then, in stage 2, that can be where the breakup happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where, you've not had the track record of being who you claim and doing what you say you'll do.
And I think it's important to show those chinks in your armor to your partner, is show that you're not perfect. You don't have it all figured out, right? Because then as long as you're being truthful to yourself and to her, I think that's the foundation of all of what you're just talking about.
Yeah, I agree. He gets into this one part where this has presented some problems for me in relationships before. And let me know if you've had this experience as well. You don't need to have similar likes and dislikes to work as a couple, but you do need to be compatible in how you handle conflict and express emotions and affection. So I've had relationships where we did share likes and dislikes, like very, very closely, but we did not share how we handled conflict and expressed emotions and affection to each other. And, now as I've gotten older, I realized, okay, well, one of these is important and the other one is not. And the sharing the likes and the dislikes, it feels like, kind of low-hanging fruit or easy wins, but it's not nearly as important for forecasting the success of your relationship as, okay, well, do you actually have the same value? Do you look at love and relationships and mental health? Do you look at those things the same way as each other? The expression of emotion, the how to handle conflict, if you don't match up on those things, then it doesn't matter that your favorite band or your favorite movie is the same.
Right. Yeah, because that's a good point. I mean, the likes are the easy ones,
right?
That are you're going to be able to find something, most likely.
And you can fairly easily change your likes. The person you're dating can expose you to a new TV show or a new band that you weren't familiar with before, and you're like, oh yeah, they're pretty good. I like those. I'd be happy to go to their concert. But then, if the way you express emotions or the way you think about intimacy are not the same, that's going to be a bit more of a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your communication styles are different.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes time to resolving a problem or thinking about a problem or an issue. That is far more difficult to manage and find, I think. But I also feel like if you come from a position where you were not as, before listening to this podcast and reading these books and things, I was definitely more focused on being right, and my ego is getting in the way. A lot of times whenever I would have an argument, instead of trying to figure out what the solution is and then providing time and space for that other person to get out and communicate everything that they need to. And those two little things, really, saying that this person is important enough and the relationship is important enough to work on a solution to the problem and not care how we got there or how we get there, that, and also giving that time and space and being able to take some things that don't sit with me very well, maybe that I don't agree with, but just focusing on allowing that time and space for that communication to happen from her, from the situation. Those two things alone have already have made such a big difference in my life in terms of my overall happiness and my ability to come to solutions and resolve problems a lot more quickly with a lot less stress. So those are the two things that I try to really, and I'm translating that into not just my relationship, but with my girlfriend, but with other people as well. And it's worked pretty well. It's worked pretty well.
Yeah. My revelations in that space have been, and we talk about this all the time, where any of these techniques, any of these practices, any of these anythings that we recommend for men to sort of integrate into their relationships, into their lives, are all contingent upon the belief that I am enough and I'm healthy enough, I'm good enough. No matter what happens to me, I'll deal with it. I'll be able to roll with the punches. Everything's going to be okay in the end. And whereas, if you, and I think, when we talk about the 4 horsemen that can doom relationships, and how, my special one that, spends a lot of time hanging out with me is defensiveness. And if it's very easy to feel like you're being poked, and that idea of I'm good enough, I'm sufficient, I can handle anything, if that gets prodded at and, starts to crumble a little bit, and you're like, now I'm feeling like I might not be good enough. I might not be feeling like I'm enough for this person or for this relationship. Then the defensiveness wall goes up immediately. And it takes a lot of uncomfortable work to sort of build up that self-image that tells you, no, you're going to be fine. You've handled crappy stuff has happened to you before. Crappy stuff is going to happen to you again. And the only thing all those crappy things have in common is that you survive.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that you look back and you can look from actual evidence of you handling things that are more difficult or even not as difficult, but surviving through it and going, hey, look, I even came out better in this situation than I was before. So this is an opportunity for me to get uncomfortable and feel a little pain, but I might actually be a better person afterwards.
Yeah. And that's been,
for me, it's just find the emotional space and to remember those things, right? And taking the time,
especially when that pulse starts getting up, right?
In the middle of it, it's really difficult to think of anything other than what's happening right there in the middle.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, here's another one of these points at the end of the chapter where he gets a little you will know she's the one if she makes you feel like you are your best self and you feel more alive, adventurous, joyful, and loved when you're with her. Based on what he's talking about with stage 1, being in limerence, you feel that way. If any girl checks off the necessary biological, cultural checkpoints that makes you fall into limerence with her, you're going to have all those feelings, and it can sometimes have very little to do with who she actually is and what she actually is. And it's about your chemicals and the way you feel when you're around her. And so you're checking off all these boxes based on these magical beliefs that are really more about your body's hormones than they are about her.
And I know I've made the mistake of superimposing my idea of my ideal partner and relationship upon what I'm currently experiencing when I'm in that limerence. It's very easy when you're on those drugs to kind of combine both of those and get a little confused.
Perfect round peg to fit in this round hole. And then a few months later, the glasses come off and you're like, she was a square the whole time.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that can be difficult. And so I wish he did a little bit better job of, telling you, and he did it in one of the earlier chapters. He made it very clear how, your vision will be impacted when all these hormones are going crazy. But then, you still use phrases like the one, and it's like,
you said, well, I don't know if you meant it, there are many ones. There are many the ones. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, there are. But then, finding the one and making a commitment are about doing what it takes to make a relationship last. It's like, I don't know, man. I feel like in my own experience, most people, men and women, are walking around waiting for lightning to strike and not spending a lot of time thinking, I don't know how to recognize, real lightning from a transformer blowing up down the block. But it's like, it's very easy to make a mistake when it comes to that. And, especially if you've got a complicated relationship with your mom, your dad, the kind of, marriage or relationship they modeled for you when you were a kid. It's like, what have you done? Who have you asked? Who have you talked to? What have you read? Who have you listened to do anything to sort of calibrate your ideas of what relationships are supposed to feel like versus, what your parents in the movies have told you that they're supposed to feel like and look like. It's like, I don't know, man. That seems like, because this and so many other books talk about how, as men, the most important decision we'll ever make is, what partner we choose to marry and start a family with. And we're almost doing no work to figure out, like, okay, are the criteria that I am unconsciously evaluating to find that person remotely close to what they should be? Or am I just going based off of vibes?
Yeah. And the easier move is just go off of vibes.
Right.
So that less taxing.
Yeah.
And figure that out.
And then you end up with a society where half the people are getting divorced because the vibes change or don't last. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I think, maybe for our next book, we might need to do some legwork and see who's out there talking to you about making informed choices for how to choose partners, especially in the context of what kind of baggage are you holding on to from your childhood that you may not recognize that you're holding on to. So we'll see what's out there. Okay, here are the things that will make you a zero when it comes to this. You refuse to ever commit, meaning you just, decide to adopt a lifestyle of, I'm going to be a perpetual bachelor and I'm never going to even entertain what the possible benefits of, monogamy or long-term commitment are. You think every woman is the one, which more specifically would be every pretty woman that shows you a little bit of attention is the one. You make a commitment to a woman and you don't honor it. You threaten to leave the relationship and bring up divorce when you are upset or in conflict. Yeah, that's definitely a big no-no. You don't cherish the woman in your life. You always think there might be something better out there than the woman you committed to. You don't sacrifice for the relationship, or you don't look to your relationship as the place to get your needs met. So we'll hit a couple of those real quick. If you always think there might be something better out there than the woman you committed to, he mentions that might be a symptom of agreeing to a committed relationship with a woman you've never felt limerence for. So if you made decisions that were purely based on logic and checking off some boxes, but you never actually felt that chemistry with somebody, then yeah, those people usually do end up looking back thinking, maybe I could have done better.
Yeah.
So that's something to look out for. Don't go into this just purely based on logic. It's got to be, you gotta keep the logical side of your brain working, as well as, look for chemistry and look for just attraction. You don't sacrifice for the relationship. And I've got friends that are dealing with situationships with partners where when things are good, they're good, but they're stuck in a situation with somebody who's never actually willing to say no to anything else that they want for the purpose of the relationship. Whether that's, the attention or the affection of other men or women or whatever. It's like, yeah, if you're in a relationship where somebody's not saying, I'm going to say no to this other thing so that I can have this valuable relationship with you, then you're always going to feel like you're in second, third, fourth, or fifth place and never in first place. And you don't look to your relationship as the place to get your needs met, which, yeah, that's, part of the difficulty or struggle we can run into in a social media based culture is when you commit to someone, you're saying the positive feelings I get from feeling attractive, it's 100% your job to make me feel those things now. And I am not going to be looking for other men or other women to make me feel special or make me feel attractive, because then you run into what if you meet somebody else who's better at making you feel attractive than your partner is? Well, then you're going to continue to try to solicit that feeling from that other person, and that's going to be bad for your relationship. So
Glover summed it up. A relationship should be the icing on the cake and not the cake itself of your life, right?
Right. Yeah. If you feel perpetually not good enough, then anyone who comes along and makes you feel special is going to be potentially a very disruptive presence to the other things that you value in your life, like your romantic partnership with your long-term monogamous partner. So if you're always kind of feeling like, I don't know if I'm good enough, I don't know if I'm enough, and then some good looking guy or gal comes along and tells you things or makes you feel things in a way that your long-term partner has not been doing, or even if they do it, but it doesn't feel as novel and as special as it, when you're used to hearing, hey, you're good looking from the same person for years and years, then when somebody else comes along, that's why it's important to keep up those boundaries and not really open yourself up to people coming along and making you feel that way. So yeah, that's very important. Anything else from this chapter that you wanted to get into? I was just a little bit, it felt a little woo-woo to me. You know how I hate books that I bring any woo-woo into anything.
Well, so what part was woo-woo for you?
Any time where he mentioned the one, you'll know it's the one if ...
Yeah. It's like, that's to have a whole chapter about this and not really get into it in terms of, I feel like, it wasn't really explained well. I feel who that one is, right? I mean, I don't even really like the idea of using the term the one, because that sets an expectation of, to me, the person is completely, or the situation is controllable, right? And people change.
Yeah.
And so they could be the one at the beginning, they could be compatible with you. So I feel like, maybe it's just a cute way of saying, how do you improve the odds or increase the odds of meeting somebody that you're going to stay with for the rest of your life? And I guess it's a little bit easier to say the one. But the issue that I have is there's like no talk about the other person changing in a way that maybe isn't compatible with you, because you can't control a lot of external things in your world, and that includes your partner. Right. They potentially could change in ways that aren't compatible with, what you want and what you guys, came together as a couple at the beginning with. So yeah, I feel like there could be a little bit more meat in this chapter.
Yeah, I look at the one as a term that is completely backward looking. Like, yes, she's the one I've chosen. She's the one I've committed to, but not a term that you use for before you've decided that she's the one. It's like, oh, I think I found the one. It's like, well, have you decided that she's the one? Then she's not the one. If you haven't already made that decision, it's just, she's potentially a good match. She might be the best match that you found so far or that you'll ever find. But the idea, it does feel like there's something metaphysical or spiritual or woo-woo about this. That, as someone who's been in relationships with people that I thought were going to be the one, and it didn't work out that way. Yeah. It's like, okay, if it happens once where you're wrong, you get this wrong, then, and I think Dr. Gottman was married before.
Oh, really?
His wife, Julie, too. And it's like, how can you still talk about things in that way where you went into a relationship completely convinced that you figured out you got it right, and then it turned out you were wrong? It's like, I don't see how, and I'm not down on remarriage or second marriages or anything like that, but I do feel like when you talk about relationships in those terms and you get proven that it doesn't always work out that way in a very personal way, maybe it's time to outgrow that kind of talk and sort of leave it behind. Because that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I see that. Sure.
So, anyway, all right, that's where we are for that chapter. The next one will be, let's see, chapter 14, Mother Nature, Understanding Women and Children. And that'll be interesting to talk about the levels of commitment and affection that women have for their offspring versus the feelings they have for their partners, and how men react to that. I'm hoping to get into that a bit on the next one. So thanks very much, Dan. You and I will talk about this again next week.
Sounds good, sir.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the whole episode. Dan and I certainly appreciate it. Again, please check out our website, mindfullymasculine.com, for all the news that's fit to share, as well as our full audio and video episodes. Thanks again. Bye-bye.